Jai Gaur Premanande, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagi ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Hare Krishna. So,
yes.
Thank you to Bhakti Prabhu who organized the program here.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for my
wife, of course. And it's very nice to have Brahmachari support team. Kirtan experts, all of them. And so tonight we had a suggestion. I was asking Balji what should be the subject. And he suggested that we can do something entertaining to entertain devotees. And of course, we're not the entertainers, but Krishna really likes fun. So Krishna is Ananda Mayobhyasat. So, and he was also asking if I could share a little bit more of my experiences, whatever it's worth in Krishna consciousness. So if you're all happy, we could dedicate tonight to this subject. Yeah? Everyone's fine with it? Alright, maybe we could read a little bit from Bhagavad Gita. Om Gyanti Mirandasya Gyana Shalokaya Chaksharan Militam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Panchakalpitarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mahakrema Pro Vibhur Nirmaikshatya Dhamusha Purushabham Tegunan Sudasa Sudasatmaka Vantashishta Bhagavan Vacham Sime. And so we wanted to also remember Srila Prabhupada again today. His mercy, because today is his arrival to the United States, and without his blessings, none of us would be here tonight. So we'll chant his pranam mantra as well. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So we'll be reading from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The most confidential knowledge, text 2. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitramidamuttamam Pratyakshavāgamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartam Avyayam. Translation and purport by Divine Grace Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It's the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. So, Prabhupada's purport is quite large, and we'll be just reading. It's actually 5 pages long. If we would read the purport, probably after reading the purport, we could safely go home. So we'll read just one part of it. Related to the last statement of this verse, that Krishna consciousness is joyfully performed, Susukham Kartam Avyayam, and this is what we are here for, right? We want to be happy in Krishna consciousness because this is a natural quality of the soul. So Srila Prabhupada says the process of devotional service is a very happy one. Susukham kartum avyayam. Susukham. Why? Devotional service consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, so one can simply hear the chanting of the glories of the Lord, or can attend philosophical lectures or on transcendental knowledge given by authorized acharyas. Simply by sitting one can learn. Then one can eat the remnants of the food offered to God. Nice palatable dishes. In every state, devotional service is joyful. One can execute devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. The Lord says, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, He is ready to accept from the devotee any kind of offering, never mind what. Even a leaf, a flower, a bit of fruit, or a little water, which are all available in every part of the world, can be offered by any person regardless of social position and will be accepted if offered with love. There are many instances in history simply by tasting the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, great sages like Sanat Kumar became great devotees. Therefore, the devotional service is very nice and it can be executed in a happy mood. God accepts only the love with which things are offered to Him. So, Krishna consciousness is the process which gives real happiness, because it is the process which helps us to establish our relationship with the Supreme Lord, and Supreme Lord is the source of all bliss, and this is one reason why we feel such a contrast when we start the process of Krishna consciousness, because material life means misery at every step. And people are so miserable that they try to derive happiness from misery, right? There is no happiness. So, and people try to feel happy by replacing one misery with the other misery, right? Say they have a lot of trouble, and what do to feel happy? Go and drink, right? And what is alcohol? It's actually poison, right? Just go poison yourself and feel happy. That's all what's available in this world, right? And that's why the song which Srila Prabhupada claimed to be his most favorite song by Narottam Das Thakur says, Hari Hari Bipale Janama Gunaino Manusya Janama Payara the Krishna Nabhajya Janya Shuniya Vishakaino. That, oh my Lord, I wasted my life uselessly because I got this human form of life, but I never worshipped Radha and Krishna, and therefore, Janya Shunya Bishakaino, therefore, knowingly I took poison. So we can see, it is practically that those who are not worshipping the Lord, knowingly they take poison. They drink poison, they smoke poison, they inhale poison, they shoot poison down their vein. And what do they do it for? Like one man was asked, do you know that smoking is a slow death? He said, yeah, I'm not in rush. So, because, people feel so stressed out by the material life that, even that poison gives them relief. What a horrible place, right? We're living in the material world. It's like there is no happiness, and just replacing one misery with the other, even that makes you feel happy. Of course, temporarily, because then you feel even more miserable after that. Hangover and horrible things, right? Actually, it's amazing what Srila Prabhupada saved us from, right? That the life which is just suicidal life. One of my friends, he was sharing how when he was a medical student in university, and one thing they have to do, it's very tough occupation to be medical practitioner, and the one thing they have to study is corpses. I'm sure Nateshwar Prabhu can tell you. I'm pretty sure he had to do that same thing, right? Studying corpses. And so he said one, and they call it anatomical theater, I think, right? Where they have these corpses. And he said they studied the effects of alcohol on human body. And so the teacher showed students one man who was very stout and strong, had very strong body and very large body and large head. And the head was open, and he showed that the brain inside the head was very small, which was very surprising. And he explained that actually he had normal brain size, but because he was alcoholic, his brain got dissolved, and only like the small part of the brain remained. So this is what the hangovers are all about. The alcohol is solvent, actually, and it dissolves what you call neocortex, the finer brain matter, and then, it's like the brain is the most important part of the physical body, right? We need to have brain in good condition to advance spiritually and to function normally in our life, but this is what people do, right? They dissolve their own brain by taking alcohol, so in the attempts to become happy in this world. And so, therefore, we all feel really grateful to Srila Prabhupada, who sacrificed himself to give Krishna consciousness to the whole world. And of course, we know that he struggled so much in India, but because familiarity breeds contempt, and Indians could not really appreciate what he was giving. But when he went to the West, and he had this proof of concept, right? How Krishna consciousness is valuable, and so many Western people, they took so much interest in it, and when they came with Srila Prabhupada to India, then Indians became very much interested in Krishna consciousness, right? There is one Russian kind of story about one man who had a dry cow. Well, not completely dry. Cow was giving little milk, but he wanted to sell this cow because it was very unprofitable for him to keep the cow. And so he went to the marketplace, and he was trying very hard to sell the cow, but then no one wanted to buy. And so he became very frustrated. He wanted to take the cow back. But then one trader approached him, and he said, I can help you to sell this cow if you give me some interest from the sales. He said, yeah, sure. I can't sell this cow at all, so if you can sell, I'll pay you. And so then this trader, he was very expert, and he started glorifying this cow beyond limits, and there is even one Russian cartoon made on the subject. And the most amazing thing was that he was not lying about the cow, but he was saying things in such a way that it was true, but had double meaning. And people were thinking that this is like the most amazing cow. Like one man was asking, so how much milk the cow gives? And he would say that you would have to milk this cow until your hand gets tired. And so, of course, the meaning was that no matter how much you milk, there is no milk coming. But people were taking it, so much milk coming, you cannot stop it, etc. And in this way, he was like glorifying this cow, and there was a huge crowd of people. And finally, everyone was putting their bids, I'll pay you so much, I'll pay you more, I'll pay you more. And the owner of the cow was standing nearby, and he was getting, very impressed how popular his cow is. And then at the end, he actually told the trader that, don't worry, I'm not going to sell this cow because this kind of cow I need myself. So he got, affected by all the excitement around the cow. So, and I was thinking, of course, cow is very valuable animal, but, Western world does not appreciate the cows. But, it's human psychology. And especially in Kali Yuga, if everyone is into something, then, everybody else wants to join in, right? And so, Prabhupada, through so much hardship, achieved that result. He created Hare Krishna movement, right? And so, even though in India there was not much appreciation for Krishna consciousness, but when he brought Western people and, because India is trying to imitate West, right? Whatever West is doing, let us do the same thing, right? And this is our thing, Krishna and Bhakti, and it is old. We're not interested. Something progressive, something from the West. And suddenly Prabhupada comes from the West, from the most important country in the West, from America. And Americans are all into Hare Krishna. So then Indians were thinking, oh, we need Hare Krishna ourselves. And so we can see how it is happening that, of course, nowadays India is picking up. So Prabhupada's strategy was really effective. And it's not just a hype. It's a real thing, and I think the most impressive thing about Krishna consciousness is that, as this verse says, Pratyaksha bhagamam dharmyam. Pratyaksha means direct experience. So we have our direct experience, and this is what is convincing us, right? That we read Srila Prabhupada's books, we listen to the classes given by different devotees, and we can relate to it because we have direct experience of what Krishna consciousness is, right? And this is what makes our faith strong. And it's very interesting that the more seriously you practice Krishna consciousness yourself, the more exciting your direct experience becomes. Like I was mentioning about my spiritual master, and he's publishing these diaries of traveling monk, and he explains certain things which happened to him, and many people can't even believe it. They say, how come? That even devotees, they say, how come? So many miracles happening to the same person. Very hard to believe, but we know why. We know that what Krishna says in 4:11, Yethamam prapadyante tanstateva bhajamyaham, that as they surrender unto me, so I reward them accordingly. And therefore, our experience, our spiritual experience is directly proportionate to the level of our surrender unto Krishna. And so, two devotees can have completely different lives in Krishna consciousness. Someone might have like life full of miracles, and other devotee might just kind of live the life which is not very much different from ordinary people's lives. And because it's a different level of surrender, and of course, traveling with my spiritual master, I see his level of surrender, and I also have direct experience of the circumstances he describes later in his diaries. And I know that sometimes he's not even telling the full story, because full story is too unbelievable. So he tones it down, and he describes just, like very basic things about what's happening to him, because full story is too hard to believe. But, I can see as eyewitness that all these things are not even true, but they are even more than true. And it's quite amazing to be with him and travel with him. I know he comes to Adelaide sometimes, right? And some of you know him. Would you like to hear one of the stories I was directly involved in? Yeah. And actually this story is involving, because our subject matter is happiness in Krishna consciousness. There is one specific form of the Lord which is just meant for that, to share bliss of Krishna consciousness with everybody. Anyone knows what is this form? Of course, every form of the Lord is sharing so much bliss, but there is one very interesting and very specific form, and that is Giriraj Govardhan. Because one of the prayers to Giriraj written by our Goswamis is Namaste Giriraja Shri Govardhana Namide, Ashesha Klesha Nasha Paramananda Daine, that we are worshipping Giriraj, who is known as Shri Govardhan, because Ashesha Klesha Nasha, he is destroying unlimited miseries, and Paramananda Dayana is giving the topmost bliss, right? Bestowing topmost bliss. So what else do you want? Takes your miseries away and gives you happiness and bliss in return. And so that's why, Giriraj Govardhan is so popular, as Rupa Goswami describes that this is the most sacred place in the entire Braj Mandala, and always been the topmost object of worship for Gaudiya Vaishnavas and so many other people, right? Giriraj is so popular. And so we go, whenever we are in Braj Bhumi, we are going to do Govardhan Parikramas, and the more Govardhan Parikramas, the better it is. Some Vaishnavas, like Vaisheshika Prabhu, they do Govardhan Parikrama every single day, the entire Kartik. And this is not the limit, that there are some saintly personalities living at Govardhan who are doing more than one Parikrama a day. So this is very surprising. And so, of course, when Srila Indradimna Maharaj is also taking devotees to Braj, compulsory, we go to do Govardhan Parikramas more than once during Kartik. And one time we went, and he really likes to be in the company of his god brothers. So oftentimes many Prabhupada disciples, they join his parikrama. And we've started at Kusum Sarovar. Let me see the show of hands. How many of you been to Braj and done Govardhan Parikramas? Okay, not many. So hopefully tonight it's going to be the advertisement campaign for you to go, because this is an amazing place. And so we started at Kusum Sarovara, and we started with little class, and Maharaj gave an instruction. He said, Govardhan is a very special place, and every single stone at Govardhan is non-different from Krishna. And so please don't pick up any stones, because, sometimes devotees, they just want to have something from the holy place. He said, don't pick up any stones, because these stones are non-different from Krishna, and in order to have a stone from Govardhan Hill, you have to have permission from your guru to worship the stone, and you also have to have blessing of Brajabasis. Ideally, it should be given to you by some Brajabasi with their own hand. So that's an ideal situation. So he said, don't pick up any stones, but I will pick up few stones because I'm Guru myself, and few devotees, few senior disciples of mine, they wanted to worship Govardhan, and I'll pick few stones for them. And so we went on, and we passed almost half of the parikrama. Actually, we went quite slow, in a slow motion, because we were stopping at many different sacred places, and so many different Prabhupada disciples, they were explaining about these places. And we went almost all the way to the end, and I never saw him taking any Govardhan Shilas, right? This is what you call stones, Shila, from Giriraj. And I was wondering, when will he start picking Shilas? And it seemed like he completely forgot about it. But when we came to Govinda Kund, which is almost on the other side, almost at the end of Govardhan, and he called me over and he said, I will be giving class to the devotees now here, and I want you to go to the hill and pick few stones and bring them to me, and I'll choose which ones I want to keep. And I was thinking, this is very confidential service he wants me to do. And then he said, no, I changed my mind, because I want to just wait for you here. I will ask another Prabhupada disciple. His name is Chaturatma Prabhu. Let him give class. He can give class. And I'll just wait for you on the steps here, that Govinda Kund has these steps going to the water. And you go to the hill and pick a few stones and bring them back to me. I thought, okay, this is good. And so, and he didn't want any devotees to see, because all the devotees were at the class, so we were pretty much alone. And there was another disciple. He's quite well known, Dhruva is his name. And so just two of us were with him. And so I went to the hill and I picked few stones which I thought would be, interesting for him. So I brought them, but the problem is that, when you go to Govardhan, it's a very sacred place and you cannot use shoes because you can step on the Govardhan accidentally, right? So we have to go barefoot. And there is a thin trail going around Govardhan. And if you're on the trail, it's very nice. But when I stepped to the inner surface, there were so many thorns there. It's like unlimited thorns. And I didn't know why, but I figured out later, probably when they sweep the trail. That's a reminder for everyone to put your phones on the silent mode if you haven't done that. And so when they sweep all these thorns for so many days, so all these thorns are accumulated on the inner part. And so it was like pretty much bed of thorns I had to walk on. And it was quite a steer. And the sun was also hot. Anyway, I was thinking that, this is service, so I have to do it despite of all these difficulties. So walking on the thorns, and I managed to pick few Shilas. But then another trouble came. These were local children. And they came running and they started shouting and screaming and telling me that I cannot pick any stones. And if I want to take any Govardhan Shilas, I have to pay them dakshin. I was thinking, it's fine, I had some coins in my pocket. I tried to give them coins, but they were saying, no, we want something more serious than that. Anyway, I told them I'm not taking these stones yet. I have to show them to my guru first. And they said, okay, we'll come with you. Anyway, what to do? I brought shilas to him, and these children were there as well, making sure that if we take any stone, we would have to give them something. And but then he said no, that none of this stone is actually suitable, that take them back and bring another batch. So I went and brought another batch of stones, and then he said no, none of these are suitable, go back and bring another batch. So, and it was getting really hard, you know. And then a third time, he also didn't want to keep any. It looked like a torture by that time already. And then he told this other disciple, he said, looks like he doesn't have good taste for beautiful Govardhan shilas. Better you go and bring some. And I was thinking, thanks Krishna, better that I don't have any taste and I don't have to go through all this torture. Let Dhruva try it out. And he was young, and he actually lived many years in Vrindavan, so he was kind of accustomed to the local atmosphere. And then he went, and all these children were trying to stop him. He would just smack them on the head. And thorns, I think, bothered him, but little less, because he used to walk bare feet. Anyway, he brought few stones, few Govardhan shilas, but then Maharaj said, no, that none of these I will keep, bring another batch. And so he went few times, back and forth, and also no results. And I could see on his face he was getting frustrated as well. You know, when you work so hard, you try, and your guru says, no, that's not what I need. It's kind of quite a serious test, not just physical, but emotional, right? Your service is not good enough. And then he saw that Dhruva frustrated, and I also didn't look very enthusiastic. He said, okay, none of you separately can find any good Govardhan shilas, so I think I have an idea. You have to go together. Maybe together you will succeed. And of course it's like, you know, this competition mood. Sometimes it helps, you know, like who will find best Govardhan shilas. So we went together, and it was so amazing. We went another 3 or 4 times, and still he didn't want to keep any shilas. And we were like, we didn't know what to think, you know, what kind of Govardhan shilas he's looking. We brought him every shape, every size, anything you could think of, and still he didn't want to keep any. And we were like completely puzzled. And he looked at us, and he actually realized that that's it, you know. We ran out of our surrender. We are not advanced enough to do anything more. So there is a saying that there is no use of whipping that horse, right? So we were like dead horses by the time. And it's very interesting that, but we were still like puzzled and trying to understand what will happen next. And he was sitting on the stairs and looking into the water, looking at the water and thinking of something. And we were like waiting, okay, what he will come up with. And meanwhile, when we were going back and forth, and anyone who's been at Govardhan knows how noisy these children are. And so they were making so much noise, and that noise effectively attracted other children. And so by the time we were doing this for like at least half an hour, maybe an hour, and so many more children came, and it was like every time we would go to the hill and back, I don't know, like huge crowd of all these children, really noisy, they would follow us. And so it's like he's sitting on the steps and looking into the water and thinking about whatever he was thinking. And we're standing there, and all these children, they're making so much noise and they talk between each other. And of course, even though I don't understand Braja Bas so well, but it was easy to figure out what they were discussing. You know, like it was one topic. How much do we charge them if they take any stones, right? And so amidst of all this, you know, noise and all these children, you know, like running, etc., etc. And yes, how much do we charge, and how do we share it between ourselves, and who gets the share and who doesn't get the share, right? And so all these children arguing between each other, and then there is one girl there, local girl, maybe 11 or so, 10, 11 years old, and she looks very different from other kids. First of all, she is quiet. She is not screaming or arguing with anyone, not trying to get anything. And second of all, she's like very, she has very fine aristocratic features. And she's dressed, you know, all these children, they dressed in a very rugged and, you know, kind of dusty clothes, but she's dressed in, you know, really like impressive looking dress. She stands out from all the kids. And she comes and she sat right next to Maharaj and looks at him, and then he is looking at her, and then she's asking him in a perfect English language, so you're looking for Govardhan Shila, beautiful Govardhan Shila? And Maharaj is very impressed. He said, yes. And she said, I have one for you. And then she opens the palm of her hand, and both of us standing near, and our jaws dropped, because the kind of Govardhan Shila she had in her hand, we couldn't even believe that this is Govardhan Shila, because we could never imagine this kind of Govardhan Shilas exist at all. Just imagine a perfectly shaped pyramid, and absolutely smooth, brown from three sides, but then the fourth side, as if it was a cut, and the outer layer is brown, like Govardhan color, but then there is middle layer, which is sky blue, and the central layer is white crystal. And you know, we couldn't imagine that this is Govardhan Shila. Maharaj also never saw this kind of Govardhan Shilas apparently, because he was asking her, this is Govardhan Shila? She said, yes, it is Govardhan Shila, very rare. So you're looking for special Govardhan Shila, this is for you. And she gives this Govardhan Shila to Maharaj, and Maharaj just couldn't believe it. He said, you want to give this Govardhan Shila away? She said, yeah, for you, a gift. And after that, she stands up and just walks away. She didn't want anything. And Maharaj, you know, completely shocked. And he says, Dhruva, catch up with her, give her some money. And then he runs after her and he's trying to give her something. And she said, I don't need anything. why, like it was a gift. But he said, please take something. Maharaj wanted you to take. And she said, okay. And then she takes the note, and she, doesn't have any pockets. She walks with this note in her hand, and all the children are there, and they are so much, like into getting something. And she's just walking with this note in her hand, and none of the children ever tried to get this money off her. Rather, they all part way, and they, like, when she comes, they become quiet, and they stand on the side, and she just walks through that, aisle, and just leaves. And we're like flabbergasted. And Maharaj, all of us, all three of us, and Maharaj says, who was that girl? And I just say, maybe it was Radharani. Just came and gave you Govardhan Shila. And yeah, he said it's unbelievable. And then, he looks at this Govardhan Shila, and such a beautiful stone. And he says, I don't even want to put any oil on the stone because it might change the color. Because the natural color is so beautiful. And then, I became so kind of attracted. And even though he gave me Govardhan Shila before, but I asked him, Guru Maharaj, you wanted to give this Govardhan Shila to some disciple, right? So which disciple you want to give this Govardhan Shila to? And he looks at me and he says, I'm not going to give this Govardhan Shila to anyone. I will worship this Govardhan Shila personally. Which he does until today. He still has this Govardhan Shila and worships. And the story doesn't end there. You want to hear the continuation of the story?
Yes.
So next day, we continue the second part of Govardhan Parikrama. And then we come to one place which is called Udavakund. And it's really special place. I mean, every place at Govardhan is special, but this place actually is pretty special for me. I can tell you this story as well. But Maharaj has very personal relationship with the local pujari there, and his name is Giriraj Das, I think. And how they got to know each other was very interesting. That I think it was 1990. He came to this place, and then he came to the altar to see the deities. And Maharaj is very observant, and he notices all the small details. And then he saw a little box on the side where the paraphernalias are kept. And he was asking Pujari, what's in that box? And Pujari was very happy, because nobody is asking about this small box. Everybody is just looking at the deities. He said, oh, these are Shalagram Shilas. And Maharaj said, can I get the darshan of those Shalagram Shilas? I want to see those Shalagrams. And Pujari brings that box forward. And Maharaj looks there and he says, are there any historical Shalagrams worshipped by some great devotee? And Pujari says, yes, this Shalagram Shila was worshipped by Narottam Das Thakur personally. And without, skipping a bit, Maharaj says, can you give this Shalagram Shila to me? And Pujari is so shocked by the this request, believe it or not, he doesn't say no. But what he says, if you come here after 10 years and ask for this Shalagram Shila, I'll give it to you. And Maharaj says, fine. So 10 years have passed, a year 2000, and Maharaj is doing another parikrama and comes to the same place. And of course, 10 years, like, do you remember people you saw 10 years ago? Especially, Pujari, so many people come every day. And so Maharaj comes to the altar and he looks at Pujari, and Pujari says, yes, what can I do for you? And Maharaj says, 10 years ago I was here, and you promised that if I come after 10 years, you will give me this Govardhan Shalagram Shila by Narottam Das Thakur, worshipped by Narottam Das Thakur. And so 10 years have passed. I am here. And Pujari is shocked. Right? He never expected that to happen. That someone to wait 10 years counting, years, months, weeks and days till this, time is over. And of course he doesn't want to give the Shalagram Shila. But he cannot say no because he promised. And Maharaj actually puts pressure on him. He said, you are Brahmana, so you gave your word, now you have to do it. And yeah, even though it was so hard for the Pujari, he said, okay, what to do? And he gives the Shalagram Shila. Of course, Maharaj reciprocates very nicely. He gives a very generous donation to help with the renovation and whatnot. But then this Pujari became so impressed because in Braj, for all these amazing devotees, they have only one criteria of one's level of advancement in Krishna consciousness. And that single criteria is steadfast, how steady one is, right? That they have some sadhus who sit under the same tree for decades together and never move, right? So it's like if someone is steadily dedicating oneself to the service for years and decades, so for all the local devotees, this is the proof that this is real thing, right? Because you can fake something for a little while, but you cannot fake for life, right? If you do it for such a long time, it must be real thing. And so he was really impressed that for 10 years, Maharaj could have this, unflinching meditation on, worshipping this Shalagram Shila. And then every time Maharaj is coming, then this Pujari, is arranging some special grand reception for him. And this time we came, and I was really surprised that this Pujari, Giriraj Das, I think his name, that he brought so many garlands. And we had so many, like, Prabhupada disciples on the with the group, and everyone got garland. And it was really surprising that, Indradivna Maharaj was also surprised, like, how come that you have so many garlands? He said, yeah, because I knew you were coming, so I prepared. And he doesn't have a phone, he doesn't have an internet, he doesn't have anything, and Maharaj is saying, how did you know that we are coming? Because even we didn't know that we will be coming at this time to this place. How do you know? And he smiled and he pointed at the deities, Radha, Uddhav, Bihari. He said, they told me that you'll be coming, and they told me to get ready. So this is communication. service, network in Braj. Just ask Krishna. Krishna will tell you everything. And so then, he's so happy to see Maharaj, and he says, this time I have very special gift for you. You will be very happy. I know you like Shilas. So I will give you very nice Govardhan Shila as a gift. And he brings out one Govardhan Shila. We just couldn't believe it. That not only this Shila is beautiful, but it is an exact, you can say, replica of the small Shila, but it is bigger in size. Like the first one was maybe this size, you can say pocket size, but that one is like much bigger. Exactly same thing, perfectly shaped pyramid, brown on 3 sides and 4 sides as if there is a cut, and all the same 3 layers are there. And of course Giriraj has no idea about the small one we've got the day before. And we just look at this Govardhan Shila, we can't believe that how this is possible. And he can understand that we really like this Govardhan Shila, and he said, this is very special Govardhan Shila because I worship this Govardhan Shila for most of my life. And I got it from one very special sadhu who lived at the cave of Govardhan his whole life. And he had this Govardhan Shila as his personal deity. And before leaving the body, and sadhus, they actually know when they leave the body. And so, and he said, I was just a young boy, teenager, and he called me over and he said, I'll be leaving this world very soon, and this is my Giriraj, and I want someone who is very reliable to worship this Giriraj. And he said, I know you are very reliable, because Giriraj was very famous already when he was a young boy, because his father, and for all these places, it's like they really depend on their children to carry on worship, because these are all family temples. And so his father was so worried that if his son will take it seriously, and he actually prayed to Giriraj, and he made 5,000 Govardhan Parikramas as tapasya to, get the mercy of Giriraj, to have a son who would be able to look after the temple. And so after he did these 5,000 parikramas, this boy was born, and already in his childhood and youth, everyone could see that he's really qualified. He's like so serious about Krishna consciousness, and everyone respected him. And so this sadhu, he called him over and he said, I know you're very reliable, and I want you to take care of this Giriraj for me. And then he left this world. And he said, I worshiped this Giriraj for so many years, but I know that I won't be staying for much longer either. So now I want to hand this worship over to someone who is also very reliable. And he said, I know you are very reliable. So I'll give this Giriraj to you. And then after we left, and I was like really interested what Maharaj would say. And he told that these 2 gifts, these 2 Govardhan Shilas he got, were the most valuable gifts he ever God in his life. And of course, he's like not just Prabhupada disciple, not just sannyasi, not just guru, but he's doing very, very, big scale preaching, etc., etc. He's very famous personality, and of course, people do appreciate him, and they give him very valuable gifts, costing, tens of thousands of dollars, and giving him very large donations, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars donations. But he said he never received anything more valuable in his life than these two Govardhanshilas, because one was given to him by, this amazing girl. Nobody knows who was that girl. And probably we will never know. But and another one was given by this saintly Pujari, saintly Brajabasi. So both are not just Brajabasis, but really outstanding Brajabasis. And these Govardhanshilas, he said, they look so similar. Like you have big deities and you have small deities. They call Utsav Murti, that you can bring these small deities out, etc. So he said this small Govardhanshila like Utsav Murti of the big one. And he's still worshipping both of them. And so I was thinking that he just had this desire to have very special Govardhanshilas, and Krishna fulfilled his desire. Giriraj fulfilled his desire in this very special way. And yes, this is what's happening at Giriraj. And I was also promising to tell you my experience at Uddhavakund. You like to hear?
Yes. Yes.
This was actually the very first time I went to Vrindavan and India also. It was 93. And I had no idea about anything. And so devotees were going to do Govardhan Parikrama, and they told me you can come along with us, and I gladly went, and we did the whole Parikrama. And of course it is quite hard if any of you have done the walk. Of course now it is very nice.
Yeah.
From last year, Yogi Adityanath,
Yogi, he puts all the
he's the
lights and everything.
yeah, he's the new, relatively new chief minister of the state, Uttar Pradesh, and he's a devotee. He's actually the head Mahant of Gorakhpur temple. And he invested some phenomenal amount of money into Braj to restore the Braj, and because his policy is really unbelievable politician. He's sannyasi, right? But he decided to become chief minister of the state because no good people, no good kshatriyas, so sannyasis have to take the responsibility. And he's doing all these fired up speeches. Like every speech he starts with Go Mata Ki Jai. He's like so much into Dharma. Really good leader. And he gave phenomenal amount of money to restore Braj. And he's like personally doing all these surprise visits to check on people, make sure there is no corruption, no one steals the money. And if he finds any irregularity, immediately he removes the person from the position and puts another one like that. It's pretty hard. India is like so madly corrupt, unfortunately. So he has to fight tooth and nail to make sure that the money actually used for the purposes it's given. And I think he gave like 1,000 crores or something, some unbelievable, millions, tens of millions of dollars. And so now if you go to Giriraj, it's all sand around. It's like almost like Disneyland experience now. Before it was so hard, you have to walk on
torch and
hot asphalt and sharp stones, and it was like so hard. But now it's like sand, all soft sand all around it here. And but when I went, it was very hard parikrama, of course, and my feet were so sore. And normally, like for people like us, if you do parikrama, you've been to Braj? If you do parikrama around Govardhan one day, then next day you take it easy. You don't like do any parikramas, right? Just recover from the injuries. And so, anyway, next day I was not planning to do any parikramas, but in the morning, Mangalarati, one devotee comes up to me and he said, Shivaram Maharaj and Bibi Govinda Swami, they go to Giriraj, they do parikrama. Would you like to join? And I'm saying, okay, then I cannot miss this opportunity. So I joined that parikrama, and it was really ecstatic because, two such senior devotees, and they spent so much time in Braj, and so they were telling very exciting stories. And I didn't have even like pen and paper with me to write things down. So I thought, let me drop into one shop and see if they sell some notebook and some pen so that I could write the stories. But while I was shopping, the parikrama went ahead, and I didn't know the area at all. I didn't know where did they go. So I was asking, local people, where did parikrama go? And you know how it is in there, that people, even if they don't know, you ask them for direction, they will send you somewhere. With great confidence, they will show you the way, and you'll get lost, and this is how it is, right? So this is what happened to me, like every person I was asking, they were sending me somewhere, and I was running and running, trying to catch up. And after a while, I realized, okay, I've lost it. And I was going and going around, and then I came all the way to Udavakund. And I was like alone, and I was so, kind of depressed about the fact that I've lost the devotees, and I missed all the nectar. And I came to Udavakund. And this place is very special because it's explained that Uddhava is living there in a form of the trees and bushes and creepers, like that. And I was just sitting there. I kind of vaguely remembered about this place, but because it was just my second time there, I didn't have full awareness of where I am. And I was just thinking, I remembered that one devotee told that every tree in Vrindavan is Kalpavriksha tree, and Kalpavriksha means whatever you wish, any of your wish can get fulfilled. And I was sitting under the tree lamenting, I've lost these devotees, and I was looking at the tree, and I told, if you are a Kalpavriksha tree, then my desire is that I want to find the devotees again and join parikrama. And then suddenly I hear the voice, and this is not externally, it's like inside of my mind, but it was definitely not the voice I ever heard. And the voice is really grave and very deep. And the voice is telling me that if you want your desire to be fulfilled, you cannot just ask in such a casual way. You have to bow down and chant pranama mantra of your spiritual master, because you cannot go directly. And only then you can ask for your desire to be fulfilled. And I was like, wow, that's serious. Okay, and then I actually not just bow down, I paid full dandavat to the tree and started like chanting pranama mantra of my spiritual master. And I haven't even finished chanting the pranama mantra. And then I hear the voice of Shivaram Maharaj, and anyone who heard him speak, he has this deep voice, which is not, which is easily recognizable. And he says, this is Uddhava Kunda, the place where Uddhava eternally resides. And I'm just lying there doing my dandavat, and I'm thinking, what happened? My God, like I'm getting all these hallucinations. And then I'm lifting my head, and I actually see Shivaram Maharaj and Govinda Maharaj and all the devotees entering into that place. I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. And later I've realized it was actually Uddhava, because he lives there in the form of the trees and creepers, like that. And these holy places are quite amazing. You like to hear more?
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, at some point, my Guru Maharaj gave me Govardhan Shila to worship. That was 20 years back. And it was under very interesting circumstances, because at some point, because he would always worship some deities, some Shalagram Shilas, he was really always into it. And I started asking him, is it like really important, deity worship or worshipping Shilas? He said, yeah, you have to worship as well. And I was asking, like, so do you want me to worship Shalagram Shila as well? He said, no, you have to worship Govardhan Shila. And I said, why Govardhan Shila? And he said, because Govardhan is Krishna and Shalagram is Vishnu. So worshipping Govardhan is much more traditional for our sampradaya. And then, but he said, yeah, I was asking him, is it like, are you certain that you want me to worship Govardhan, not Shalagram? He said, yes, but let me think about it and I'll tell you later. And then this conversation was in India, but then next time we meet in Russia, St. Petersburg, and immediately after seeing me, and it's quite interesting, like we had this conversation like half a year back, and he sees me and he tells me, I thought about it I have this question. I came with this question. I didn't even ask this question, and he's answering. Right? He said, I thought about it, and I definitely concluded that you have to worship Govardhan. And I said, okay, where do I get Govardhan, Srila? And Govinda Maharaj is there as well. I don't know how many of you know him. He doesn't come to Australia, but anyway, he's like very senior Prabhupada disciple as well. Bhakti Govinda Maharaj. He comes to America, right? And he points at Govinda Maharaj. He said, he is from Vrindavan. He will give you Govardhan Shil. And Govinda Maharaj said, I don't have any because I had one before coming here, but I had no one to give it to. So I brought him back to the hill and I left him there. And now I don't have any. And then Govinda Maharaj said, no problem. Next time Govinda Maharaj will give you Govardhan Shila. And I really feel that this next time is not gonna be, like, I wouldn't have to wait for too long for this next time. It's gonna be happening pretty soon. Somehow I got this feeling. And basically, next morning, 2 Sankirtan devotees come, and they want to see Govinda Maharaj. And I was kind of secretary for both Swamis. And I'm asking, what's the subject you wanted to discuss with him? And they said, we have one Govardhan Shila. One devotee, was not authorized to worship, so we took this Govardhan Shila from him, and we want Maharaj to take him back to Vrindavan with him. Because he flew from Vrindavan and he was going back. And I know exactly what will happen, but I'm not telling them anything. So I let them see Maharaj, and Maharaj talks to Indradyumna Swami, and then he comes out, my spiritual master, and he says, okay, the Govardhan Shila you will worship is here. You can take him from Govinda Maharaj. And I'm telling him, well, it was your instruction that I worship Govardhan Shila, so you are my Diksha Guru, so I would prefer that you give this Govardhan Shila personally. He said, okay, I'll do that. But then he takes Govardhan Shila and he says, I will give it to you with specific instruction to worship him every day until the end of your life. And I'm like, oh my God, why did I ask him? Because, like, whole life, you don't know what will happen. And this is such a serious instruction. And I got, anyway, and he said, take standards of worship from Govinda Maharaj, he'll teach you. And I'm like so stressed out. It's such a heavy responsibility. But then Nrsimha Kavacha, Prabhu, he is my god brother. And he is, of course, the minister for deity worship. He was not the minister back then, but he was always like heavily involved in deity worship, Mayapur, Radha Madhava. And he comes to me and he said, I heard you got Govardhan Shila from Gurudev. I said, yeah, he wanted me to worship Govardhan Shila. And then he gets on my case. He said, do you know how serious responsibility it is? Why did you take this Govardhan Shila from him? And I'm saying, like, he gave it to me. I didn't take. But he said, no, you had to say no, because, you're not ready to take this responsibility. You will worship him for a year, then you will drop the standards, and, starts scaring me, I'm already stressed out like that. And I'm thinking what to do. Because from one side, I know that, I cannot say no to my guru. From the other side, I feel it's really like serious responsibility. And I cannot ask Govinda Maharaj what to do, because definitely I know he will say, just carry on, because he's, biased in that way. But then there was one other Prabhupada disciple there, very amazing devotee. Unfortunately, he left a few years ago this world. His name was Shyamlal Prabhu, Bengali Prabhupada disciple, whom Srila Prabhupada, gave a lot of personal association, and he sent him to preach to South Africa. And he was telling Prabhupada, I'm really afraid, because he was really young boy, I'm really afraid to go to South Africa because there are many lions there. They might eat me up. And Prabhupada said, don't worry, I'll bless you, no lion will ever touch you. And then he said, I went. And he spent like whole life in South Africa, very successfully preaching, so many things he'd done. And he's like one of the happiest devotee. He was the happiest devotee I ever met in my life. Always smiling. And, always in such a good mood. And I came to him, I told him, this is the situation, what to do. Shall I try to give Govardhan Shila back to Maharaj or keep it like that? And he said, don't worry, whatever happened was actually Giriraja's arrangement. It was his desire, and so he wanted you to worship him, so if you do it, he will actually take care of you. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. And then I was feeling quite relieved. Anyway, because so many things happened in 20 years, I could, if you wanted, I could tell you more stories. I don't know how much tired you are. You like to hear more or not? Not much enthusiasm. Yes or no? Yes. Okay. All right. There are unlimited stories about him. Well, Giriraj is known for three things, as we know from Bhagavatam. That first, why Krishna told everyone to worship Govardhan, because he said Govardhan is actually providing us with everything we need in our lives, right? And so why worship Indra? Let's just worship Govardhan, because he gives us everything. And so this is first and foremost, you can say, feature of Giriraj. You just ask him for anything you want. And of course, devotees want something not for themselves, but for serving Krishna. And Giriraj is providing with everything. So there are so many stories of Giriraj fulfilling devotees' desires and fulfilling them in most unimaginable way. Then second is, of course, he is protecting, that he was sheltering all the devotees from the torrents of rain sent by whom? By Indra. So this is the second function of Giriraj. But the third, and I would say the most important function, anyone knows what else he is doing? He is uniting everyone around Krishna. Because so many devotees in Vrindavan, they want to be with Krishna, but Krishna is only one and devotees are so many, and so Krishna has to give his time to one particular group and everybody else has to wait, right? But nobody wants to wait. Everybody wants to be with Krishna all the time. And all the devotees have this very strong desire. And Krishna knows it. And then he takes this opportunity during Govardhan Leela to bring all the devotees very closely together around him, right? So this is the most important function of Giriraj. He is uniting everyone around Krishna. And we understand how important unity is in Krishna consciousness, right? United we stand, right? And so, yeah, I've seen it's like Giriraj is fulfilling the desires of the devotees, and this is what I've observed with my, what we call mine, right? But my Govardhan Shila, and he's also doing his own pastimes, and he's also protecting. I mean, I've got a lot of protection from him in very dangerous circumstances. So I don't know which story you want to hear. Huh?
The most dangerous.
Most dangerous story. Okay, maybe the latest one, actually connected to Australia. Last year, I've been to Melbourne for the very first time, and the reason I came there because there is one devotee who is working in Indian embassy, and I was recommended that I needed Indian visa urgently, because it just so happened, even though I was going to India as part of my round the world, but I completely forgot to get visa when I started my journey. And so I had to get visa on the way. And so I was recommended that Melbourne would be the place where, the devotee can help me. And so I went there, and I really prayed for that, and anyway, Giriraj fulfilled that desire, got visa in a very short time. And so I was really happy, and after Melbourne, I was going to Singapore. And Singapore is a very strict place that you cannot enter the country in devotee clothes because they don't want any foreign missionaries in the country. And so they actually stopped few of very senior devotees on the border and blacklisted them from coming to Singapore, because they recognized, okay, these are missionaries and they're not allowed. I heard Lokanath Maharaj was blacklisted, and some other devotees. So everyone has to go in disguise, in civil dress, no devotee dress, no tilaks, no neck beads, no shika. I mean, shika we have to cover with a cap, something like that. Make sure it's complete disguise. And so I've been entering Singapore in disguise for so many years. Everything was going smooth. But I was so excited that I got my visa, and I completely forgot to change before boarding the plane. And on the plane, I'm kind of happily flying, but then suddenly, it dawns on me, I'm still in my sannyas dress. And all my, change is in the luggage. And I wouldn't be able to reach it until I'm in the country. And that means I have to go through the border in a sannyas dress. And I'm like, oh Krishna. And for many hours I was like really intensely praying to Giriraj, please protect me. I don't know what can be done. But if I'm blacklisted from Singapore, I have things I'm doing there, so it's like it's gonna be a disaster. And my ticket will get cancelled and so many troubles I'll have to face. Losing a lot of money. And then I'm landing in Singapore and going to the immigration, right, to the border. And standing there, waiting in the queue, waiting for my turn, and trying to hide behind other people's back from immigration officers, that they don't see me, and praying more and more intensely, and then my turn comes, and I have to go to immigration officer. And I'm walking there, what to do? Giving my passport. And then when I was walking, actually something happened. This immigration officer got distracted by the other officer, and they started discussing something very, urgent. And she was talking to her colleague, and I'm giving my passport, and she's taking my passport, and while talking to the colleague, she looks at the passport, and while talking to her colleague, stamps my passport and hands it back to me without looking at my face even once for a split second. Which is like a very serious breach of, the protocol, right? Because they have to compare the face and the photo. She never does that. She just looks at the passport and without looking at me hands it to me, and I walk out, and the devotee who picks me up in the airport, he nearly fainted when he saw me. He said, what happened? I told him the whole story, was not intentionally, I just forgot to change. And he said, you are the first white devotee who went through Singapore border in devotee clothes. So, that was the fresh one. I mean, Giriraj is, like figuring out how to do things in the most unimaginable way. Yeah, and not only myself, but there are so many devotees whose desires Giriraj fulfilled over the years, and actually he is here. Anybody wants to see him?
Yes.
If you have any desire, we can ask him. Alright, so I guess we will ask our... Don't worry, Giriraj is here, nothing to laugh. I think Indra is getting ready. A little bit too excited now. So we'll ask our kirtaniyas to do a kirtan, and actually, if you have a table or some stand, we can put Giriraj on, and devotees can do Govardhan Parikrama.
Yes, yes. Bring it. Boys can start kirtan. So we'll finish here. Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Jai. Ki jai. Jai. Of course, there is so much more to say, but time is limited. So leave it for next program. Or maybe next visit, we'll see.
karo. Dua parigama.
Okay, so if you want to have darshan of Giriraj, you can have darshan, come close, make your prayers. If you want to make any offering, you can put it in front of Giriraj, not on the top of Giriraj. And please don't touch Giriraj, right? And yeah, make sure that you don't push the table, right? So we'll continue with the kirtan, and now you can come and have darshan one by one, and then we'll move on to Rasayana.
a service to Krishna. I don't know. I lived a while, but I had to. Some guy gave it to me. I don't want to.
श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन यागी की जय, श्री गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय, प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरु वृंद की जय, भक्त वृंद की जय. All glories to the Samudra. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. So by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we have opportunity to do Govardhan Parikrama right in Adelaide.
No thorns.
And now, the most exciting part, right? Bhagavad Prasadam. Starting with Giriraj Mahaprasad. Yes. So, I don't know. How did you know that this is what Giriraj likes? Probably he told you. So, someone can distribute this Mahaprasad, and I have more. Giriraj really likes to eat, as we know. Right? Anakut. So, distribute this. So, those who haven't got opportunity for darshan, you can have that, and those who got darshan, you can come and have Mahaprasad. Sit on the ground. Please don't push the table. Be careful and don't let the kids push the table either.
Bathtub, fill it up with water. I don't like eating strawberries. What did he say? There's 3 people watching. There's 3 people watching. How are 3 people?
Please don't.
Good girl. You took a charge.
Some guys. There you go. You're welcome.
Just after a few minutes.
Some nice thunder.
Well, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Papa?
One of them struck really close. One time, remember the old house you used to play show?
Yeah.
And you like car park in the veranda?
Okay,
it's in my room one
से
night.
करा दिया प्रशांत उसको दे दिया ये तो दो
Right, yeah, we have a massive crack in the house shake. We're fairly certain to get the door in the veranda because it was all metal.
Good to see you from He's resisting about Krishna, isn't he? Or coming out sometimes.
चलो